About 50,000 years ago, we shared this planet with different hominids called the Neanderthals. Their species wasn't human, but they weren't far from it either. No longer walking among us, these early cousins of humans died out long ago, but not before they had a chance to, get intimate with some of our ancestors. If you were to mate with a Neanderthal today, what would your children look like? Would your relationship stay monogamous? And how much money would you spend on a date?
This is your time mission, mating with a Neanderthal.
With their protruding brows and large molars, a Neanderthal may not be the most attractive partner available. But considering that 20% of Neanderthal DNA is found in humans across the globe, they might have had a little something going on. After all, our bodies are entirely compatible, and these primitive features might trigger something primal in you. And while you might have a wild night out, would you be able to speak the same language? Let's clear a few important things up. Humans did not evolve from Neanderthals. Our species and theirs came from a common ancestor over 500,000 years ago. Then, like two branches on the same tree, we both went our separate ways. Neanderthals roamed Eurasia while humans were starting to migrate out of Africa. But due to inbreeding and smaller population size, the Neanderthals slowly faded out of existence. And if they were still around today, our gene pool might look wildly different. But before you start painting the nursery, let's start talking about your matches. Again, you may not find Neanderthals conventionally attractive, but they weren't the lumbering oafs from our imaginations. Our primitive cousins were adept at hunting and killed large animals at close range. They made many tools and even created jewelry. These strong and fierce hominids would be able to protect you, bring home dinner, and even make you an anniversary gift. But you'd want to dine in more often, especially when you consider that Neanderthals would eat 700 calories more than humans per day. They might be primitive, but they wouldn't be a cheap date. Also, considering that Neanderthals often ate the contents inside their prey's stomach, their table manners might be a little bit messy. But even then, there might be an attraction you couldn't deny. So, what would attract you to a Neanderthal? Most of our human desires are ruled by the specific mate recognition system. This means you're attracted to individuals you feel comfortable with, so anyone who triggers the right anatomical, behavioral, or chemical cues in you could cause an intense attraction. But hey, you like whoever you like. Unfortunately for you though, a relationship with a Neanderthal wouldn't be exclusive. Neanderthals lived in small communities and inbreeding was a common practice. So your potential in-laws would all be fierce competition for your partner's affection. Our skin and hair still contain genes from Neanderthals' surviving genomes. While your children would have a full head of hair, they could suffer from blood clots and be more at risk for catching communicable diseases like COVID-19. And depending on your partner, your hybrid offspring might have trouble reproducing. Mating between human females and male Neanderthals would be less likely to produce fertile children. Neanderthals were known for their broad noses and protruding brows. Based on fossils found from these human-Neanderthal pairings, your kids might not inherit those features, but they could have massive molars, a large bone behind their ear, or frontal face flattening. Flat head syndrome isn't lethal for infants, but it can be costly to correct, involving physical therapy or expensive corrective helmets. Humans mating with Neanderthals didn't keep their species going, but their legacy lives on in our DNA.
Mating with Neanderthals is pretty wild, but this is nothing compared to your next mission. Going back in time on a dinosaur safari adventure. Strap in for your next time mission.
Today, you're traveling back to witness the most radical changes ever known in Earth's history. You'll watch our planet give birth to strange new animals and see continents taking shape. We're going to the time that defines our existence, the Paleozoic Era. But how would your body react to the new climate? What kind of creatures would you eat? And how hot would the planet get?
This is your time mission. Travel to the Paleozoic Era.
The Paleozoic Era began 530 million years ago, when the Earth woke up from an ice age. The era lasted for 289 million years, but you might not even last 5 minutes in this climate. But hey, if you're as resilient as the life in these waters, you just might stay alive. In these oceans, life has the perfect space to begin. And like all great things, it started small. Good luck trying to find a meal. 543 million years ago, all life on Earth lived below a thick layer of mud on the sea floor. But don't get out your lobster bib yet. The only things you'll find here are microbes. Ooh, so chewy. Your menu won't be getting any bigger for a few million years, until the Cambrian explosion, the big event that would kickstart life on Earth. The cyanobacteria would pump more oxygen into the atmosphere, making it easier for you to breathe. So take a deep breath and enjoy life on this doomed continent. During the Ordovician period, 485 million years ago, you would watch North America and Europe merge to become the supercontinent known as Gondwana. Now, grab your parka, because as this landmass moves over the South Pole, a massive ice age would spread across the globe. Under the water, jawless fish would roam the sea, dominating the ocean. Algae and sponges would begin living on coral reefs, and back on land, the first plants would take root. But 80% of the life in shallow seas would die as sea levels plummet when the new ice age begins. Starting about 444 million years ago, you would see the glaciers melt. This event would create a climate similar to what we have now. The ocean would be full of sea scorpions, the size of dogs. So look out, these opportunistic predators may confuse you with dinner. In the Devonian period, 3 continents blanketed the planet. 419 million years ago, much of Earth's landmass remained underwater. You would need to live near the shoreline to harvest the resources you need to stay alive. Since trees would be covering the world for the first time, you could build shelter and even start a fire. And with the soil rich in nutrients, you could begin to farm plants. But while you would rule the land as an apex predator, the ocean would belong to the early sharks, and they look hungry. Travel back 358 million years ago, And you would see life near the equator would thrive while the rest of the world would experience deadly temperature changes. The first reptiles would start appearing. Look out for that ophiuchodon. They can grow almost 3 meters tall. Even dragonflies can have wingspans of 75 centimeters. Well, one of those could feed you for a while. Okay, all the changes we saw have led to this event, the Permian Period. About 299 million years ago, almost every landmass on Earth had merged into the supercontinent known as Pangaea. This massive land stretched from pole to pole, with vast deserts in the center. The wild temperature changes would kill amphibians, but don't worry, you wouldn't be alone here. The Archaeops would tower over you, standing 2 meters tall. This lizard-like creature devoured its prey whole. If you keep out of its way, you might enjoy the new oxygen levels, thanks to more trees sprouting up everywhere. But you would see a violent end to this period. Whether it's meteors, exploding volcanoes, or methane clouds, 96% of all life on Earth would die out. The highest extinction rate ever known. Now, if you made it through, get back in the time machine. Millions of years ago, Earth looked very different. All the continents were fused into one, teeming with life, both beautiful and terrifying. When you think of prehistoric times, you might picture a T-Rex rampaging through the jungle with its razor-sharp teeth. But even before the dinosaurs, there were other giant creatures ruling the Earth. Yeah, welcome to the Permian Period. This epoch started 300 million years ago. Back then, our planet had one supercontinent, Pangaea, surrounded by a world ocean called Panthalassa. The Permian Period began at the end of an ice age when temperatures were much cooler than today. Then, during early Permian days, Earth warmed to a lush environment with a diversity of plants and a rapid evolution of insect and animal life. Only, as you probably know, everything is ever-changing on our blue marble. Over the next 50 million years, Earth kept growing hotter and drier. Eventually, the most deadly event in the history of our planet wiped out nearly everything that ever lived here. Scientists call this event the Great Dying, and it was the most catastrophic mass extinction event the Earth has ever seen. And the Earth has seen 5 of them. But before we get to all this doom and gloom, let me take you on an epic journey back in time. Here in the Permian Period, some of the most incredible species that roamed our young planet are about to emerge. If you could time travel nearly 300 million years into the past, you'd land smack dab in the middle of the supercontinent Pangaea. Earth's smaller continents would have just finished colliding with each other to form this enormous landmass, taking up 1/3 of the planet's surface. There was likely less oxygen in the air than there is now, but you still might be able to breathe. Oh, and bring a jacket because it would likely be chilly, with some areas averaging no more than a brisk 4 degrees Celsius. But don't worry, things will soon start heating up. By the end of the early Permian, the Ice Age was on its way out and Pangaea was becoming a lush world. Plants and animals started to thrive. This was a volcanic world. Violent eruptions changed the climate, shaped the landscape, and paved the way for evolution.
When giant swamp forests began drying out, plant life had to adapt, and so, 290 million years ago, Earth saw the very first seed-bearing plants called gymnosperms. These plants carried seeds on their cones, and they spread across the supercontinent like wildfire. The ancient evergreen forest of the early Permian was hiding something familiar. Just like today, you could find cicadas and beetles piercing and sucking on the plants, and the cutest of them all? Cockroaches. Only, these weren't the cockroaches you know today. These prehistoric vermin were gigantic, the size of birds. But despite their size, cockroaches never ruled prehistoric land, and that's good news, am I right? No, something much more fascinating was roaming Pangaea. The now extinct ancestor of primitive mammals, Dimetrodon. This animal was as fascinating as it was terrifying. Encountering a Dimetrodon would be quite a sight to behold. This ancient lizard grew to 5 meters long and weighed 225 kilograms. It had a large sail running down its spine. Scientists think this sail helped the reptile regulate its body temperature, soaking up warmth during the daytime and dissipating excess heat during the cooler nights. It would walk toward you like a crocodile and act like a total menace. Dimetrodon was an apex predator of its time. Watch out for a mix of sharp and flat teeth that would slice you open and grind you up. In the Middle Permian Period, other mammal-like reptiles took over the planet. Therapsids. They had strong jaws with sharp teeth and a somewhat upright stance thanks to their legs being situated underneath their bodies. Therapsid reptiles varied from the 5-meter-long, likely omnivorous Deuterosaurus to the 5 times smaller, meat-eating Lycanops. You could meet plenty more therapsids if you stuck around for another 20 million years. During the Middle Permian Period, Earth kept getting hotter. The average global temperature on Pangaea grew to about 25 degrees Celsius, and volcanoes were spitting greenhouse gases out into the atmosphere. Due to the changing climate, sea levels were shifting, but marine life found ways to thrive. If you were to take a dip in the prehistoric superocean, you'd be swimming alongside ancient sharks and bony primitive fish. Many more complex marine species came and went as the environment kept changing. In the late Permian period, you could have a friendly encounter with another reptile, Lystrosaurus. These looked like a cross between a lizard and a pig, but unlike all the scary prehistoric monsters out there, Lystrosaurus was a herbivore. It was just 1 meter long and had powerful front legs for burrowing. Soon, another cute mammal-like lizard evolved, the cynodont. The cynodont looked like a giant rodent. It was about 1 meter long, had whiskers, and fed on small animals and insects. Now, during this time, something bad was brewing in the air. A large amount of volcanic activity was displacing oxygen from the atmosphere. Scientists think there was as little as 10% oxygen in the air. Compare that to 21% today. You'd have a hard time breathing in that environment. And the temperature kept rising and rising. With an average temperature of about 28 degrees Celsius, this lush prehistoric world was turning into an oven. All good things must come to an end, and sadly, this period came to a particularly brutal one. About 252 million years ago, about 90% of all plant and animal life was wiped out. This tragic moment is called the Great Dying, and it was Earth's most devastating mass extinction event. Scientists still debate what caused this catastrophic extinction. Most theories suggest it was the result of explosive volcanic activity. As huge volcanic eruptions swept the continent, massive amounts of ash were unleashed into the atmosphere. So much ash that it blocked out most, if not all, of the incoming sunlight. And with no sunlight, global temperatures dropped suddenly. Plants couldn't perform their photosynthetic processes and died off. And without plants, the very basis of their food chain, animals soon followed. Things got worse before they got better. Because of all the carbon dioxide emitted during the volcanic eruptions, global temperatures rose again. And not just to where they were, but higher, much higher. And this caused the superocean to lose most of its oxygen. And unable to breathe, a majority of the Permian sea animals perished. Eventually, over 95% of marine species and more than 70% of land animals became extinct. This mass extinction event could make you sad enough to want to bring back all the animals that have ever gone away.
Think you can bring them back? Strap in and get ready for your next time mission.
We're taking you back to the time of woolly mammoths and saber-toothed cats. Yeah, that's right. You're living in the Stone Age. If you were living day to day in this primitive world, what would you use as tools? How would you communicate with anyone? And would you have to eat your family? .6 million years ago started a period we call the Stone Age. And in this period that spanned almost 2.5 million years, our ancestors faced 3 ice ages, limited resources, and hungry predators. Every day tested the limits of early human endurance and challenged their bodies and minds. The Earth was plunged into ice ages for hundreds of millions of years. The entire world was cold and dry, never warm enough to rain or snow. This was hell frozen over. But when temperatures rose, humans had to adapt, and fast. These early nomads wandered from one area to the next, never finding permanent homes until much later in human history. So, if you were in this group of hunter-gatherers, what would you eat? You wake up in a dark cave next to a dying fire. Next to you, your sleeping family is huddled for warmth. Put on your best fur. It's time to provide for this tribe. Outside your cave, you would find other members of your group in tents, ready to move at a moment's notice. You and your fellow hunter-gatherers migrate like birds, moving to wherever the resources can feed you best. So now grab your spear made of bone and wood. You learned how to craft it from watching another tribe put one together. Or maybe you were a genius ahead of your time and created tools like this on your own. Scientists still aren't clear on how much influence Stone Age humans had on one another. Why is this still shrouded in mystery? Well, that's because early humans weren't communicating with each other on a high level at this time. You would have to reverse engineer what you've seen others use before. Or wise up and learn to invent it yourself. So, what are you hunting with this weapon? You would be in search of woolly mammoths. These massive beasts were the size of African elephants and weighed around 6 tons. You could follow their large footprints to track them down, and you'd use fire to herd them to fall off a cliffside. Or you could spear one to death. Yeah, good luck with that. Just one woolly mammoth could feed up to 30 people for 2 weeks. But what if you weren't lucky enough to catch this early mammal? Well, no worries, you'll just gather nuts and berries. Or eggs from bird nests. There's even evidence to suggest early humans used clay pots to cook their food once they had everything they needed. Lucky for you, Stone Age humans were true culinarians. Tools found in the Paleolithic age show evidence that they may have created flour from oats. How does some oat flatbread sound? A little bland? No problem. Just grab some garlic, mustard seeds, turmeric, or even some wild onions you've cultivated. But if you're not careful, these spices could be used to season you. Markings discovered on the bones of our ancestors indicate that occasionally we ate each other. Yeah, we even sucked out the marrow from the bones. Better sleep with that axe next to you. But these people didn't need food as an excuse to kill each other. Many skeletons from the late Stone Age have nasty head injuries. Whether it was raids, infighting, or all-out battles, early humans led violent lives that were often cut short by each other. So when you're not out fighting for your life or searching for food, what would you do for fun? Well, humans in this period were the first to leave behind art. Using a combination of minerals, charcoal, and burnt bone meal, they created images of one another, animals, and symbols. They even made flutes from bones. That's right, you could have a jam session around the fire. And you better make the most of every day because the average lifetime in the Stone Age maxes out at 40 years.
You better hop back in that time machine before that happens. Now it's time for your next mission. Survive in the Paleozoic Era. Think you can do it? Strap in and head over to your next time mission.